Wicked for Good is coming out next week, so why not take a look back on some of the movies that I've experienced from this side of cinema, starting with the all-time greatest classic, The Wizard of Oz. Or at least it's considered an all-time greatest classic by some people. I'll just get right to the point. I've been struggling ever since rewatching this a couple of nights ago to articulate my verdict on this. Everybody and their mother has talked about this movie on this platform. If you talk about entertainment, from all the behind-the-scenes stuff that went into this, the long-lasting impact that it's had on the decades since then, this movie's almost 100 years old. And it's still the most referenced film in all of pop culture, from various movies or shows, maybe even a video game or two. Even in real life with some sports, believe it or not. I'll probably sprinkle a few of those throughout this video. I'm not going to be able to cover absolutely everything, but I'm going to make an attempt at the very least. If you somehow have never seen The Wizard of Oz, what are you even still doing here? I mean, you have all the time in the world to check this out. Please, give it a watch. Some way, somehow. Not nobody, not know how. Well, that was certainly random, wasn't it? Most people have seen this movie by now, or at the very least, they've heard about it, or they know of it. I know it's really hard to comprehend that there's some people out there who haven't seen this, but there's gotta be at least one person out there who hasn't seen a movie that you love. Whether it's one of the greatest, or maybe a cult classic that you like. Either way, there's at least a few people in this world who haven't seen it, so I have to put in the spoiler warning either way. But the plot of The Wizard of Oz is this young girl named Dorothy who lives in Kansas, dreaming for something better than what she has, to go somewhere over the rainbow as she sings in this movie. A tornado blows through her farm, taking her away to the land of Oz, and now she has to try to find a way to get home. You know, I can't remember the first time I ever watched this because it's always existed. Have you ever had one of those experiences where you're used to watching something so many times that you can't really find somewhere in the back of your mind when you first encountered it? Another experience I could think of was the I Am Your Father scene in Empire Strikes Back. That's always existed in my mind. I guess I kind of have a faint memory of when I first watched that, but even then, I don't remember exactly how I reacted. Same thing goes with Wizard of Oz. It's so cemented in my consciousness that it's almost impossible for me to pinpoint my first viewing experience. It's a very simplistic and traditional plot. We have our protagonist that's longing for something better than what they have. Then something dramatic happens, causing them to go onto this big adventure, and ultimately they have to come to this realization about themselves, using it as a way to fight back against the opposition that's in front of them. Cases in point, Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, Neo in The Matrix, or even Peter Parker in the first Spider-Man movie. Obviously, there's a ton more of examples I could rattle off, but Dorothy really was the beginning of the Chosen One story arc. I guess if that's the right way to put it. I mean, some people will probably scream at me saying, no, it was this or that. In my experience, I think from what I've been able to gather in my research of cinema, she really was the one. The very first one in modern cinema. For all the problems that you may or may not find with this one, we don't really get a clear idea of how much time has passed. I mean, at the end of the movie, she says that she was trying to get back for days and days, but we're never really told exactly how much time went by. And also, the only weakness for the Wicked Witch just so conveniently happens to be right there in front of her, and nobody even thought to throw out the bucket of water. Came across that in an older review I saw from somebody that I used to follow back in the day. And the musical numbers really advanced the plot forward in order to introduce certain characters like the Lion, the Tin Man, and Scarecrow, and so on. And it's not original coming from me. This film, in a lot of ways, in almost every way, even with all the problems you could find with it, it's just a big, big achievement that I don't think any other movie or TV show in Hollywood has been able to fully replicate. Like I said, almost a century later, people still reference this movie in every area of life. And again, I'll show as much clips as I can that I could find to emphasize the point. But in the case of Dorothy, played by Judy Garland, she has this maturity to her that you wouldn't really see in a character like her. Supposedly, Judy Garland was in her mid-teens when they were making this. And for her to not come off as too childish or unsympathetic to the audience, she has this way, I think, of drawing the audience in to make us feel for her and want her to succeed in some way, shape, or form. She feels like nobody really in her home understands her. She's always going to her Auntie Em and Uncle Henry, talking about Miss Gulch who wants to take her dog away, and they all just shrug her off saying, we're busy, go bother somebody else. And all the guys who work on the farm don't really seem that concerned about it either. Basically, she feels like she doesn't fit in, and the only way for her to do so is if she goes off to somewhere else, somewhere over the rainbow. That musical number is so angelic, and Judy Garland, you know, wherever she may be on the other side, I hope and pray that she realizes just how much of a truly big impact she's had on everybody, including me. And it's really bittersweet to watch her performance in this one because of how her life turned out in the years since then. I watched a documentary about her some time ago. She had a really, really hard life, and I felt so deeply for her. But like in certain moments when she's in the Wicked Witch's castle, calling out to Auntie Em when she sees her in that globe, you would think that certain actresses or actors would be tempted to go over the top with crying and screaming, but she manages to strike the right chord and not being all too woe is me for the audience to be turned off by her. The first moment where she can really show that is in the scene where Elmira Gulch, played by Margaret Hamilton, takes away her dog. Me being a dog person, even before I had my Labrador of 11 years, back when I first saw this as a kid, or one of the many times I watched this as a kid, I hated that part so much. And I think any dog person would feel the same. Oh, she bit her dog, eh? No. Besides the color palette of sepia tone and the sound design, which more than likely date the movie, it's the way the actors talk that make it feel like a product of its time. Very fast talking and very structured. Nobody talks like this anymore, see? I'm gonna tell you this thing and I'm gonna smoke the cigarette. It's a little hokey and ridiculous, but it has a certain charm to it, if you know what I mean. And I don't really like to use this word, but the tornado sequence, I think, is a masterclass of technical achievement and special effects. The tornado that we see in the background was a 35-foot stocking moved around on a stage to simulate the effect of a tornado. And more than likely, they had some big fans in order to create the illusion that you were inside a tornado. I mean, for it to be that high of a wind speed, the tornado is obviously too far away in the background. But even so, I still feel like I'm in the middle of that storm.
It's a twister! It's a twister!
You sound like one of those little guys in that movie about the tornado. It's a twister, it's a twister.
Then she's knocked out unconscious and she's carried up into the sky in her house in the middle of the funnel.
Dorothy's flying! Baby, she's flying, man!
And then follows a scene where it comes off as very psychedelic and trippy, and there's a couple of moments like that sprinkled throughout the whole thing. She sees all these weird images of people in a rowboat, a woman sitting in a rocking chair doing some knitting, and then Miss Gulch on her bicycle turning into the Wicked Witch, with the famous Wicked Witch theme. Then she finds herself in the land of Oz, in Munchkin Land.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, Toto.
I don't think we're in the food chain anymore, Dorothy.
And I read somewhere a while back, and I reported on this for my film studies class when I was in college. This was an actress that had sepia tone paint covered on the back of her body. And the way they transitioned to Dorothy is that they had the camera move far enough away from that extra so Judy Garland could come in her Technicolor status, giving us this really big euphoric feeling of, what the hell is this place? Where are we? But it's amazing and it's beautiful. Films in color back then were obviously not common because it was very expensive to use that on a regular basis. Very similar to the original Richard Donner Superman with the opening sequence on Krypton. It's very blocky and obviously a set. The background is an obvious back wall that's painted with the land in the distance, if you know what I mean. Even so, it still feels like you're in this really weird yet exciting place. Then we're introduced to the Munchkins and Glinda, the Witch of the North. I hate saying Glinda because I think it's so pretentious and, well, yeah. Glinda is played by the late Billy Burke, and she only makes a couple appearances throughout. I have to admit, knowing what happens in the first Wicked movie kind of makes me feel like, yeah, I don't know if you're exactly a good one. Obviously, I have yet to see part 2, but the Good Witch of the North, I'm not so sure about that. I don't really need to go over all the songs, but from all the musical numbers that are thrown in here, from Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, and even though you can write this off as very dated and too old school and too campy, I have to admit, I was tapping my foot with Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh, witch, the wicked witch. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead.
And what would it mean for the city if their heroes could finally reverse the curse?
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Ding dong, the curse is gone. You know, the curse is gone.
I had to throw the Eagles in there somehow.
You've killed us so completely that we thank you very sweetly.
Never have I ever seen so much enthusiasm and excitement over the death of a certain character. Can you name any other instance? I'll wait.
We represent the Lollipop Guild. The Lollipop Guild. The Lollipop Guild.
Oh, sing it!
We are the Lollipop Guild! Lollipop Kids! Lollipop Kids!
Yeah, he fucking can't do it!
How do you explain it? How do you explain it? Final drill! Sir!
Damn! Get out!
Get out! Aye, sir! Get out! Aye, sir!
But it turns out that was the Witch of the East. And her sister, the Witch of the West, shows up, played by Margaret Hamilton. Even now as an adult, when she shows up in that ball of fire and red smoke, yeah, I'm already terrified. Like I said with Galinda, knowing what happens in Wicked Part 1, I said out loud while watching this, Elphaba, play nice. I've been tempted a few times in the last year to look up what happens in Part 2, but, oh man, I'm so fortunate that I've been able to avoid massive spoilers for this long. Knock on everything. I only know half of the story, but I still go, what happened in the other half of that interim that made you get to where you're at right now? There's really no backstory given to the Wicked Witch of the West. She's just there to show up every once in a while and try to put a foil into Dorothy's journey to the Emerald City. And Margaret Hamilton just hamming it up every time. But major props to her. She sells it 100%. I still, once in a while, have nightmares about her.
The ruby slippers! What have you done with them?
Ha 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 ha! The ruby slippers! What have you done with them? Oh my, Toto! What will we do? Oh man.
Why does she want those slippers so much anyway?
Don't say anything. You have no power here. Be gone before somebody drops a house on you too. Very well.
Destroy you? How?
This is the only sure way, besides dropping a house on us.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. My pretty. What a beastly little boy.
Don't bother me. I'm thinking.
Hello, my dear.
But then Dorothy inevitably follows the yellow brick road to make her way to the Emerald City to meet the Wizard of Oz. And along the way, she meets various characters from the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion. All three of them are surreal versions of the three farmers from Dorothy's home. Ray Bolger, who is Hunk, is also the Scarecrow. Jack Haley, who is Hickory, is the Tin Man, and Bert Lahr, or Zeke, is the Cowardly Lion. And my favorite of the three is probably the Scarecrow. Oh, I tell you why, the ocean's near the shore. I could think, I never thought before. And then I'd sit and think some more. Then we're introduced to the Tin Man, who's been standing in the same place for over a year, frozen. And it's whenever he cries, he starts to get all rusted up to the point where he can't move, and you have to use the oil in order to make him move again. Playing into the point I made earlier, and other people have said this too, obviously, this big dance number that happens when we meet the Tin Man really is just an excuse for the actors to do all these big dance moves and just entertain the audience for a couple minutes. It does have its place, but after a while, it does kind of feel like, can we get going on the plot anytime soon?
It's because I'm presuming that I could be kind of human if I only had a heart.
I gotta imagine that silver grayish paint on the guy's face, from what I read, was not the most pleasant to sit through. And apparently they were gonna have a different actor who dropped out at the last second, so Jack Haley took over instead. Might be getting the details wrong on that though. To rewind for a minute, when they get the apples from the trees and the apples start attacking them and they throw the apples at them, I actually did something similar when I was a kid in the middle of gym class when I was going to Catholic school, trying to playfully antagonize the other side when we were playing dodgeball, doing the Scarecrows, I'll show you how to get apples. And the kids literally started throwing the dodgeball at me, and yeah, I let movies influence my life too much to the point where it's just not good for some people. I apologize to anybody if they may or may not be watching this that I affected very badly and negatively. I didn't mean for that to happen. Then there's the Cowardly Lion, played by Bert Lahr, but not before the famous setup of
Lions
And tigers and bears.
Oh My.
Fishes and seals and plankton, oh my.
The lion is just hysterical. Acts all tough, but turns out he's just a big puddle of chocolate underneath. And real quick, what he says here, I never caught on to this until I was much older.
How long can you stay fresh in that can? Come on, get up and fight, you shivering junkyard.
But Dorothy gets a lick in or two when he goes after Toto. And I gotta say, that slap from Judy Garland, you could probably hear that from millions and millions of miles away. But through each introduction of these three characters, we get to hear a repeated version of We're Off to See the Wizard. But it's a lot more exciting as more people join her adventure.
We're off to see the wizard.
And I really like seeing the development of the friendship between the four of them. I mean, they are parallel versions of the people she knows from back home, so maybe that does account for something. I've wondered about this for years to go on a sidebar. Is this really actually happening, or is this all just a dream? Maybe it's just some sort of acid trip. I don't know if I would go that far. Maybe it was just a dream, or maybe she was secretly transported away to this really off land over the rainbow. Either way, it provides a good lesson for her. So they make their way to the Emerald City, but not before they succumb to poppies as it's sprayed over by the Wicked Witch, which they explain where she was able to get it in the first Wicked movie when she's in the middle of her class trying to save this lion, who I guess, as I did some research, turns out to be the Cowardly Lion. So that one little plot point I do know about from part 2, if that's going to play into it.
But we could try. Len, yes. Oh, look at him.
No offense to my dad, but that's exactly how he is. But they make their way to the Emerald City, and it's all a very big celebration like we saw in the first Wicked last year, getting all tidied up and prepped to meet the wizard. And we have yet another musical number, which is actually the last musical number for the rest of the movie, with the lion hyping himself to be the king of the forest. And a small personal side note, my grandfather and I have quoted this to each other a couple times when I was a kid. Courage. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. But inevitably they're brought in to meet the wizard, and he seems to be this very intimidating figure because he's hyped up as this very mythic and mysterious figure, and it's this floating green head, which actually I noticed on rewatch, he has fangs in his mouth. It's what happens when you watch a Blu-ray disc in high def. And some of the lines from the wizard as he is meeting all four of them, like with other lines, I still quote this one to this day. You clinking, clanking, clattering collection of collisioners junk! He agrees to grant them their requests if they go get the broomstick of the Witch of the West, which obviously doesn't sit well for them, but they decide to go off and find it. Going through the dark forest, and the lion is still freaking the hell out. I'd turn back if I were you. But then they're intercepted by the army of flying monkeys sent by the Wicked Witch of the West. This film has plenty of iconic scenes to offer, but this one might be the most memorable for me.
Fly, my pretties, fly, fly!
And I'd like to know how Loki used it to turn two of the sharpest men I know into his personal flying monkeys.
Monkeys? I do not understand.
I do.
I understood that reference.
Dorothy and Toto are taken away to the witch's castle. The witch tries to get the slippers from her, but it's not working, so she only gives them a certain amount of time from the hourglass, saying that the slippers will only come off if she's dead. Don't tell me, but I'm asking myself, why does she want them so much? And I must say, to this day, I still shudder in fear in all the right ways in this moment.
I'm frightened, Daddy. I'm frightened. I'll give you a hand, my
But Toto manages to catch up with Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Lion, leading him back to the castle to rescue Dorothy. Wicked Witch or no Wicked Witch, gods or no gods, I'll tear them apart. I may not come out alive, but I'm going in there. There's only one thing I want you fellas to do. What's that? Talk me out of it. Oh no. They disguise themselves as guards and they sneak into the castle, break her out, and then the witch, once again, throws a foil into everything. And just by the skin of their teeth, they manage to get away from her for a little bit, but she ultimately gets the upper hand, backing them into a corner, setting the Scarecrow on fire.
How about a little fire, Scarecrow? How about a little fire, Scarecrow?
And you don't need to hear me say this, but Dorothy throws the bucket of water onto the Scarecrow right into the witch's face, causing her to melt. I cannot emphasize this enough. Margaret Hamilton's performance is just so scary in all the right ways, and it's most evident for me in this moment right here.
Well, the last to go will see the first three go before her. And her mangy little dog, too.
So the witch is killed, they get the broom back to the wizard, who is initially hesitant to grant their requests, but Toto reveals that it's just a man behind the curtain creating all of these illusions. Smoke and mirrors.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Basically, what Mysterio was for Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe. A special effects man, and doesn't really have any powers. The greatest Oz has spoken! Of course, they're all dumbfounded and infuriated by this revelation, but he shows that they all have something special inside them by giving them something practical to go off of. Scarecrow finally gets a brain, Tin Man finally gets a heart, and the Lion is granted a medal for his courage by going in to help Dorothy. And it turns out he's from the same neck of the woods as Dorothy, and he agrees to help her get back home. And I've heard some people say that the wizard is a metaphor for a person's ego. People will puff up somebody else's ego, or we do it to ourselves to make ourselves better than we actually are. But it's only when you pull back the curtain and see somebody for who they really are. It's not always ideal. It's one of those never meet your heroes kind of thing. On the other hand, if you've seen Oz the Great and Powerful with James Franco, you know that he's not exactly a bad person, but not entirely a good person. Separate discussion for another time. But clearly, he has an ego the size of the Chrysler Building. Certain shenanigans happen once again where Dorothy's not able to make the trip with the wizard back to Omaha, or Kansas, excuse me, feeling hopeless and lost until Galinda shows up to show her that she has the ability to go back home. I keep saying this, but I realize that this is not anything new to bring up. But Dorothy learned something important that I think we all can learn from. When she was longing for something better in the beginning, she got her wish to go to this place where she felt like she could belong in a better community. And she spends the rest of the time trying to get back to Kansas, but it's only in her goodbyes to Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Lion that she actually does have something good with them. She's excited to go back to where she belongs, but that means she has to leave her friends behind that she made along the way. Is it weird for me to say that I got emotional when she said her goodbyes, especially to the Scarecrow? I'd be lying if I said I didn't. It's a similar lesson that It's a Wonderful Life has with George Bailey. He has these big dreams of doing this big adventure in his life, but it's only when he sees what life would be like without him that really what he wanted was right in front of him the whole time. Same thing applies for Dorothy. And when she's eventually brought back home, she fully embraces her family who were all worried about her when she was passed out on the bed.
Oh, Auntie Em, there's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
There's a lot more ground that I could cover, obviously, from the direction of Victor Fleming, the fact that it was based off of a book of the same name, I believe, written by L. Frank Baum, which was actually used as a way to create the name Elphaba. L. Frank Baum, Elphaba. Probably mention that in my revisiting of Wicked pretty soon. But there's really not much else I can cover with The Wizard of Oz. It's already been said, and I'm really just adding another topping to the conversation. I hate to hesitate to say masterpiece, but that's really what it is. If you somehow don't like this movie, what's the matter with you? Relax, it's just a joke. Film is subjective, I get that. But Wizard of Oz truly is something special. And if I somehow make it to 95 years old, I guarantee you that I'm still going to be watching this. And a bunch of young people who are much younger than I will be at that point in time, they will be watching this too, when it's close to 200 years by that point. The fact that it's able to transcend so many generations after all this time, that should tell you something. I mean, film has that effect in the long run, not to get on my soapbox or preach or anything, but there's very few films that could truly transcend time and still have a resonant impact and remain timeless the way this movie has. But yeah, Wizard of Oz is just... experience it for yourself if you're curious. That's all I'll say. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Comment below and tell me what your thoughts are on this movie if you've seen it. Hit the like and subscribe buttons if you'd like to see more from me. And as always, see you guys in the next one.